I call to order the special meeting for the Adrian City Commission for Monday, March 24th, 2025. If everyone would please rise for a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Mayor Heath,
Present.
Commissioner Banky,
Present.
Commissioner Miller,
Present.
Commissioner Schwartz, Commissioner Roberts,
Present.
Commissioner Castleberry,
Present.
and Commissioner Gauss.
Present.
All commission members present with the exception of Commissioner Schwartz.
May I get a motion and a second to excuse Commissioner
So moved.
Schwartz? We have a motion from Commissioner Castleberry with a second from Commissioner Gauss. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Castleberry,
Yes.
Commissioner Gauss,
Yes.
Mayor Heath,
Yes.
Commissioner Banky,
Yes.
and Commissioner Miller.
Yes.
Motion carried.
At this time, we will have public comment for items on the agenda. Just to reiterate, there's a 3-minute time limit, and for the record, please state your name and place of residence. When we have exhausted all public comment for items on the agenda within the chambers, we will then open it up to the Zoom participants. We will now open it up to the Zoom participants for items on the agenda. Hearing no public comment, we will begin our work study session. And we will go ahead with our first presentation. If you can say who you are, who you represent, and you may begin. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Amy Sell. I'm with Yo and Yo HR Advisory Solutions. I'm honored to have the opportunity to share with you my interest and proposal for the city administrator search, but also to talk about other aspects that have been raised in terms of services in the future. So the presentation that I provided will cover a timeline that would include those elements. And then I included in the packet for you a sample city administrator evaluation form that could be used. I've also included what I called a integrated strategic and leadership plan. So I developed a suite of services, including brief scopes, fees, and timelines, so that you could understand how these elements could fit together as well. So I'll go through, and I know that asking questions and having this interaction is important. So feel free to ask me questions at any time. And I'm just looking forward to having a dialogue and getting to know you all better and to see if I could help. All right, so next slide, please. Thank you. So tonight I wanted to make sure I cover a little bit about us, our firm, talk about some of our experiences with municipal clients, our approach, results, and then answer any questions that you might have. Next slide. So first of all is a picture of our team. A little bit about our history is that I founded the firm 10 years ago as Amy Sell Talent. Grew the team and the product service offerings to provide affordable recruiting services. It turns out that a lot of organizations, municipalities, and nonprofits also liked affordable recruiting services. So we grew our product services as well as learned that those clients also wanted other aspects of human resources covered, such as handbooks, compensation work, leadership and training, performance reviews. So now we're a team of 24 people. that provide a full suite of HR services and support to all of our amazing clients. And we just love supporting the municipalities in particular. My parents were both elected officials. I worked in state government. And it's just an honor to help the people that help our communities in Michigan. In January, we were actually acquired by Yo and Yo, a professional services firm that's based in Michigan, and they also have a strong municipal practice group. So it's been a nice synergy, and we're thrilled to be able to even provide more services to our clients. All right, next slide. So this is some of the clients that we've worked with in Michigan, providing recruiting services as well as compensation study services and fractional HR. So we've been the outsourced HR provider for municipalities as well as other organizations. One of our most extensive municipality that we supported, we were their outsourced HR provider. We were on site for 40 hours a week. We did recruiting. We redid the leadership team structure, performance reviews, compensation planning, handbooks, and everything. It was an honor to really, get to know communities very deeply, to be able to help wherever we can. Next slide, please. So we've honed our search components to be extremely detailed and thorough. So I'm going to go through what we do when we do a search for a city administrator, including really aligning everybody on that vision of what success would look like. I'll talk about the marketing that we do to attract as large a pool as possible. I'll talk about what we do to very thoroughly assess those candidates, how we support interviewing, negotiating, and then onboarding. Next slide, please. So the first step is crucial, in my view, of getting all the key stakeholders on the same page about what success would look like. So we do individual one-on-one meetings with commissioners, with department heads, and we can also do a community survey so that all residents and all staff can also provide input. This is an area that would easily lend itself to work with strategic planning as well as leadership development too. So we could kind of get a 3-for-1 in terms of integrating those steps. Yes.
Have you done very similar to that with the community piece outside of a survey? Have you done kind of like group sessions with the community, group session with employee groups, that sort of thing as well?
Yes, we have. In fact, for Warren, we helped with their police chief focus groups. So we held a variety of focus groups in different locations and got stakeholder input that way as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Great question. So, and then once because it is very important to make sure, again, we have a very clear target about what we're working towards. So how we kind of get all this information, and then I would say boil it down into a rubric, which if you want to, next slide, please. And so we customize what I call it like a criteria list or a rubric for those in the education area of what we're looking for and how we really define the words around it. So we, based on the feedback that we get from the stakeholders and through the survey, we identify what key areas are important. Usually, communication skills is always on there. Leadership style, people management, sometimes it's community development, sometimes it's human resources acumen. It could be, again, whatever that community input that we get. And then we also really try to define what are the must-have qualities in that and what's an ideal quality. So some communities, a must-have is someone who's been a city manager or city administrator before. Other times they want deep municipal expertise, but if somebody's been a department director, that could be fine. So we try to get into that level of granularity. So when we bring back candidates, they're going to meet your expectations and needs. Then we also talk about how we're going to evaluate these candidates. So this criteria list is part of the documents that we would provide to you after about 3 or 4 weeks, and we would review them with you, with the commission, and go over to make sure we got it right. So we would review the rubric, we would review the job posting. We also build out our assessment plan. So we include the questions that we would ask in our written survey. in our phone interviews, in our video interviews as well, so that we tie the questions to each category. And so you would see all this as well as a detailed timeline when we come back to you to make sure that we're on the same page before we launch the search. So we give you the marketing plan and the assessment plan ahead of time. And so this criteria list we find really helpful, again, at lining everybody on what we're going to be searching for. Next slide, please. And so once we are aligned, then we really go market hard. So we use the typical job boards, International County City Managers Association, Michigan Municipal League, Strategic Government Resources. There's a gentleman that does kind of a blast that we will get put on, as well as LinkedIn, Indeed. We also have 4 LinkedIn recruiter licenses, so we will go after passive candidates as well, based on the rubric and those key criterias that you're looking for. So we will, and then we also have a municipal newsletter that we cultivate. So around monthly, we'll send out a newsletter. We've got over 1,000 municipal leaders that we've added to this list so that we kind of push it out. So I'm very pleased with our aggressiveness on marketing because we want as many people in the pool as we can. Next slide, please. And so here's just the last 3 searches that we've done. The number of applicants that we got, the number of applicants that we presented, as well as the number of applicants that were selected to be interviewed are listed here. Because a lot of people will apply, but we really do a lot to vet serious candidates. And our goal is to present 7 to 10 candidates, because we want to make sure that there's a nice selection and choice, and usually around 3 candidates will be brought in to be interviewed. All right, next slide. Here's an example search brochure that we've done. So in addition to a digital campaign, we will also put together a brochure and feature this and link it to our marketing materials. And that'll be, of course, customized to your community. Next slide is around assessing. So we don't use any artificial intelligence when we are reviewing resumes. Everyone is reviewed by hand, and candidates that appear like they might be a good fit, we immediately send them a written survey. So we ask them questions like, why are you interested in this opportunity? Why do you feel you'd be a good fit? We ask to understand what size organization they have led in terms of budget and people. And we also ask for compensation expectations. We'll confirm the budget, the salary budget during our planning meeting, but we also like to get another confirmation of what they're looking for to make sure everybody's in the ballpark early on for that. For candidates that look good after the written survey, then we would do a video interview. And this is kind of a little bit unique, but we use a Spark Hire video platform. So they are asked 10 questions. They will record the videos, and then you will have an opportunity to watch the videos. When we present the candidates to you via a portal, you're able to click in and look at all of the documents that we provide, as well as watch videos. It's a lot of information that we provide, but then when we have the conversation to decide which applicants you want to move forward to interview, you will really have felt like you've gotten to know them and either gotten to feel from somebody that like, okay, we don't feel that they'd be a good fit, or yes, I want to learn more. So in addition to the video, we do a phone interview to ask them questions around their career history, why they made certain job transitions, and we'll provide you with a transcript of that phone interview. We will also do reference checks before we present those candidates to you. And we will also do a background check. It's a more basic background check, but we'll make sure to flag and verify identity and make sure that any public records, convictions are identified beforehand. And then we also do a cyber review. So anything online, we will find and share and provide those links. So we feel it's a very thorough process that we do, and then you get to review all that information before you decide who to bring into an interview.
Would you say, just so we know where that process is with the video interview, so is that what you have as the number of applicants presented?
No, that would be before, that's in our.
Oh, so that would be like, or total number of applicants?
Yeah, I mean, usually when a lot of people that apply in those numbers are not serious candidates.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I think they maybe misread it or something. Usually about double the number of candidates that apply, are, I would say, serious, that we take a very strong look at. A lot of them kind of wash themselves out in the video interview or in some of the questions or the cyber review. Unfortunately, a lot of people, and now we even know who they are. It's like, oh, they're applying again. No, we're not. We will not provide those candidates forward because of their history and what we have seen. Yeah, so it's a much smaller group that we.
So what we would see from like those videos that you were sharing, that would be like in the example of like Beverly Hills, that would be like 12 sets of those 10 questions of people. That's what we would get filtered to us then.
Yes.
Okay. All
Exactly.
right.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Yep, so you get all that information ahead of time, including the cyber review. Next slide, please. Then there's the interview. So the on-site interview is a very detailed process, and we like to support that with tours potentially. We will facilitate the meetings with the commission. We also recommend a staff panel for candidates to be able to meet the staff. We would provide interview questions and facilitators and kind of hosts for the day. And we would provide the interview questions ahead of time. We would also gather feedback from both groups, compile that information, and provide that back to the commission. During this time, we can also include a community reception and get feedback from community members through written comment cards, which we would tally and then provide back to the commission, so that you would get a lot of information for your deliberations. I recommend that there's a break, that, this might be on a Thursday or Friday. Some communities have done it on a Saturday. And then at your next meeting, you would deliberate. And so usually giving some time works well.
Just to refresh our
Mhm.
memory, are all of these steps included in that fee? Are these add-ons? Like what?
It's all included.
Thank you.
Everything, no travel, no extra cost for travel, background checks or anything. It's all in that fee.
And would you, so the process of the application, the presentation of your preferred candidates, you're narrowed down to the people that are interviewed, and then we make the final decision.
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
so only one chance to meet them, not come back for a second time.
Generally, it can happen that you want to bring people back. Generally, you'll be very comfortable with the candidates that are coming in because they've already been pretty thoroughly vetted. It has happened where a group hasn't been able to determine. I mean, when I come back after during that deliberation, I tell you there's three things that could happen. One, you could decide to enter into negotiations with a candidate. You could tell me, Amy, go back, we start from scratch. Or you could have additional interviews with one or more of those candidates to make sure that you feel comfortable. So I've seen all those different options play out, and but usually you're going to be it'd be rare for you to do a second round interview from my experience, but it still could happen, and that's definitely your prerogative. Sure. All right, next slide, please. And so after you do select a candidate, we're here to support. So we can help with negotiations, although oftentimes the attorney takes the lead on that. We can help with relocation, relocation. So we take a lot of the insights that we gain through those surveys and interviews to help educate the incoming administrator on kind of key issues and priorities, as well as general onboarding support. And then after 6 months, we also provide 360-degree feedback with department heads, with commissioners, to kind of maybe tweak any communication or leadership style. So you're getting that feedback early on to kind of course correct. and that's all included. All right, next slide. So this is just kind of a recap of everything that is included that I mentioned, as well as the 1-year guarantee. And that's a summary from the proposal that you've already seen. Next slide. So in terms of the search timeline, again, there's that initial planning phase of 1 to 3 weeks. Then weeks 4 to 8, we are recruiting and then concurrently assessing. So we have an end date, and then for the next week, we'll be assessing candidates that come in like right at the end there. There's a lot of we have to do there. And then we're facilitating the interviews right after that. I like to have as compressed a time frame as possible because oftentimes when people are in one search, they're in others, and I don't want to lose out to them. So I compress the timeline as much as possible. And during that planning phase, we will agree on the interview dates so that, you know, they work for everybody's schedule. We'll communicate those interview dates with the candidates so that they put them on their schedule as well, so that it goes as smoothly as we can possibly plan. Next slide, please. So what I also did, based on watching many videos and getting an understanding of some other needs that you may have, is I took the liberty of putting together a holistic plan and how that would shape over about 18 months. So that planning phase could be purposed to gather additional feedback from the community on strategic issues and priorities. It could also be included to better understand training and development opportunities from the staff as well as from the commission. Then obviously we would do the recruiting, but one thing we could do in parallel to that is look at developing kind of a competency framework or a leadership development framework for city staff. And so, you know, that could be done in parallel to kind of dive into what the needs are, to develop a customized framework of skills and competencies that you want to make sure everyone has. I included the onboarding phase. I also included task updates. So you did a lot of work on your plan in 2023. So I don't think that needs to be redone, but I think there might be some opportunities to maybe better define some of the priorities and make sure it's really clear who's going to do what by when, and also have maybe insert some more project management in terms of accountability and priorities and focus to make sure everything is going to be realistic and that the community is aligned as well as the commission and staff on the priorities and transparency. So that what I also included after that kind of refresh on the strategic plan is we look at what are those goals and tasks and updating the tasks for the next 12 to 18 months, and then having project management support for those task owners, where every quarter we would touch base with the task owners, see if there's anything blocking progress, put together a report, and make sure that report could also be transparently shared with everyone to make sure that there's continued focus on it. Also, in parallel, we would have that leadership development training. So after we identify what the competencies are that are desired and aligned, then we would implement that training. So I included training modules as well. And then also after the city administrator has been on board, then they would have their 1-year 360 as well. So I know I didn't mean to be presumptuous, but I wanted to provide some information and some additional scope, timing, and cost for your consideration as well. Next slide. Oh, go ahead.
Could you just give me a little bit more information on what your leadership development training looks like as part of this program?
Sure. So I tried to I did a little bit of a handout to talk about some of the competency, like some of the programs that we've done. So we have done a variety of different trainings, from webinars to in-person sessions. Like we have a 6-month leadership development session going on for a client right now where they have 6 different modules. Each module is 3 hours. sometimes we do customized one-off training. So we have a lot of training material, but it always starts at, what the needs are and really understanding from our clients where the opportunities are. But from that, I included some of the training content that we've already developed at the bottom in terms of things like building trust, generational differences, situational leadership, emotional intelligence, overarching communication, et cetera. So that those are some of the topic areas that have been very popular and well received in the past.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. Next, oh, yep, thank you. That slide, yep, perfect. Again, trying to just recap why we would be honored to be your partner through this journey. We have a very thorough, transparent, and proven process with no surprises pricing. We have a very large Michigan team. The 24 people that you saw are all employees of Yo. We put the hours of a search are about 250 hours that we put into a search. All the other elements are about 300 hours, but our team, we have the capacity to do this and the experience to do this. And we are, again, very aggressive on the marketing. We really go after people to make sure we have a deep and robust candidate pool for you. I, again, wanted to provide the other aspects that we could integrate easily during this process. Our leadership training and 360-degree feedback really, again, will keep that momentum going. And we just really have a passion for public service and Michigan communities. And Adrian is a little bit special to my heart. My husband's aunt actually is a Dominican nun who's retired here. So we're frequently in the area as well. So with that, I'd love to answer any questions that you might have.
So,
Mm.
so I understand. So the search timeline, weeks 1 through 3, you're gonna do the planning. Is it gonna be week 1, 2, or 3 when you start talking to commissioners individually?
As soon as possible. So as soon as I know that we have been selected, we would reach out to the commissioners to get on your schedule.
It's tough to do a plan without knowing what's on our mind, right?
Oh, exactly. And that's why I really like the one-on-one meetings, because they're confidential. People can really share. Everybody gets an equal voice. So we find that one-on-one is very important.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I really appreciate that you stated that you don't use AI to review the resumes, and I think that's very important. So thank you for stating that. I do wonder, have slight concerns about your cyber review. I've known employers that have taken exception to some things on their employees' their online presence that I didn't find, needed exception as a fellow employee. So could you give us examples of what you would possibly weed out and look for? I mean,
Sure. So we will give you links to the different online accounts that we found. But usually what weeds us out is we found an article about someone where they were fired for cause. Those are things that we would weed out. We've never had an issue weeding someone out based on a post or something like
Okay.
that. And we don't rate them. We just share any online presence we find, we just provide the link so that, if there's curiosity or concerns, it could be found. But what we have found is when we find articles where someone's been fired repeatedly, that can be problematic. What we often do is, if we're unsure about a situation, we will ask that person to provide more explanation, and we'll include that explanation in the packet of information we provide. And that's where we know, I can think of one person right now where the situation, we've presented him repeatedly. He's a good person, but he was kind of caught up in a weird situation. I think as a city manager, sometimes I think he did some things out of ethics that somebody got mad at, and then there was kind of an unusual situation, but I didn't want to prevent him from being considered. So we gave him the opportunity to share, his kind of his perspective on it too.
Okay,
Yeah, so,
thank you for explaining that.
sure, you're welcome.
The, so the number of candidates, so you get the 200 people that start the application, the 100 people that submit the application, and then you do the review of all of them, and then we're presented with 10, let's say. So if there's so those other 90, we never get a chance to see or review or have any input.
Correct. And oftentimes they have no relevant skill. It could be, I'm a brain surgeon. Like, okay, why did you, you've never done anything in here. So I think with online tools and the platforms, it's really easy to apply to almost anything.
Right.
And so a lot of them are clearly not, they have no relevant background. I will say for any internal applicants, we always move them forward. That's something we always do. I have had clients in the past who've wanted to see the list of client candidates, and we're fine sharing it, but it's, if anybody if we feel like somebody would be effective, we would present them. We've sometimes, I think I did the fire chief search up in in the Traverse City region. It was like 17. They were all good. We were like, okay, we can't. And they had a few different rounds of, they created a different process. So, and some of our other searches, we've gone over 10. But if we really try to have at least 7, and, we'll be really, really aggressive on marketing as needed. But we feel that's a good, our target range. Again, it could be less if we don't feel somebody's going to be a good fit or have the skills needed, we won't present them, because we know how valuable your time is and we know how much information we're providing. But yeah, that's usually our range.
And how's the market out there been as of late? So COVID has kind of settled down and there's like the new groove out there. Are people more apt to be looking, or are things starting to get them down again, or it just matters on the day and the way the wind's blowing?
It's a very interesting market, I would have to say. There's a few things that are a little challenging. One is interest rates. So people don't want to move. If they locked into a mortgage rate of 2 or 3%, and now they're looking at moving and then a 7 to 8% mortgage, that is limiting the number of people that are willing to move. I would also say that communities have gotten a lot more aggressive at trying to retain good city manager, administrator talent. So we've seen some significant increases in salaries over the years. So the labor pool can be an impact, but you're close to a lot of, I'm not too worried about the labor pool here. But there's always people that want to move back to Michigan. And so we'll often get out-of-state candidates that want to move to Michigan because of family ties or because of other reasons. So that can help too. Yeah, great question.
When
All right.
was the last time, and how did you handle the last? Thanks for giving us these candidates. We want to look some more.
Yeah, that would be, I think, Lincoln Park. It's happened a few times to me. And every time we've gone back and searched for more candidates, and every time we've filled the position the second time. With Ypsilanti, in part why their number is probably really high in terms of candidates. An issue we had there is when we first launched the search, we were worried about the compensation range, and we told them that based on where the market was. And midway through, we just weren't seeing the candidates, and all the candidates that we had been reaching out to said, "You're way too low for us to consider it." And so we went back to council and said, we'd like to raise the compensation rate. We know for a fact there's some good talent out there, but they're not willing to move for the rate. And so we extended the search, and then they ended up filling the position internally, but that gave us a stronger pool. In Lincoln Park's case, we had a couple of good candidates that went through the interview process. One candidate we lost to another community. We had like a perfect candidate, but lost her to another community. A few of the other ones they weren't thrilled about, so we relaunched the search. And then interestingly, the finance director decided to take it, to throw her hat in the ring. And she knew it was a great fit. And it was kind of nice that that turned out that way. But yep, so sometimes it doesn't work the first time, and we'd rather get it right than not. So.
I think the role of you're like the matchmaker.
Yeah.
So, who
Yeah.
wants to date us and, go steady. So those individual conversations that you have here, how else do you really get to learn the community to like share those passions? And it's, the surveys are great because it gives you, statistical data, but the conversations, not just from us, but from bigger groups, how do you like really get to, know the passion of what Adrian needs?
Well, the one-on-ones are priceless for that. Also with the staff and then other community leaders. So we do up to 30 intake interviews, and some of our questions are around, kind of key challenges and opportunities for the community, but also, what do you like best about the community? So and that gives us language in terms of promoting the opportunity authentically as well, because some community, again, we want to get people who are really going to be a good fit. So those individual intake interviews, the surveys are great at giving that information, and then we kind of compile it, and then we come back and present it. It's another opportunity to level set and make sure we're not missing anything. And we've had that too, where they're like, oh, you forgot these 3 things. I'm like, okay, we'll add them in and update the brochure and marketing material.
The kind of comprehensive, full plan here is nice to see. Have you, there's that thing in theory, this is everything. Have you deployed this with other communities where you've done the search, done all the multifaceted approaches as well?
Not exactly like this.
Okay.
This was a
So
custom.
this is your dream.
Yeah, this is
Based on feedback.
Yeah, based on what I understood and what your needs were, I felt that and looking at the strategic plan, this is what I thought would be appropriate. But all of these elements we have done for different clients at different times. So, I've got on my team, I've got, 4 really good leadership development experts who do training. I have a dedicated project manager on my team because I feel so strongly that project management is so important. We have half of our team are recruiters. So again, when we do a search like this, we have just on the recruiting side, we'll have 5 or 6 people involved. So I'm very excited for the opportunity to be able to do this because I know how well it would fit together, but I don't, again, not, so it's very fun to put together.
Do you foresee any concerns since the city of Adrian has had, if I've counted in my head correctly, 6 city administrators within the last 10, 12 years? Pretty significant from what I understand.
Were some of those interim though?
2 of them were, well, I'm including Vince in this.
Yeah, it's a job with a typical lifespan of 3 to 4 years. So, some communities have more turnover than others. It's definitely an area that I'm going to want to get into in a lot of depth to understand, so that we can find the people that have the right skills, maybe that might have been lacking, or undercover other issues that might need to be addressed. Again, sometimes it's compensation. Because there are, I think, different types of people that thrive in different situations. I mean, there's definitely the turnaround experts, then there's people that are really good at a particular skill set. And so making sure that we understand what the opportunities are and then that person's going to thrive working on those opportunities, I think is key. But I think the turnover in so many communities is extremely high, and I'm working in, I've done searches twice for the same communities. I've been doing this since 2018, and I've had repeat customers. So it's not, it is, I think, it's a tough job. And also there's a shortage of talent, so good talent gets poached very quickly. And there are a lot of dynamics there that sometimes don't bode well for job security if people don't have, the right skill set around communication and being able to manage a variety of interests, and transparency and collaboration, sometimes isn't where it needs to be, sometimes so. But it's challenging. Mhm.
I would like to thank you for your input. I think it was wonderful that you
Thank you.
did this presentation. I like the condensed time schedule. I like that we're gonna look for somebody that's gonna say, we're gonna make Adrian a home, a house is a home, but we won't have that best fit all the time. So I'm just thrilled that we have this kind of schedule that would, in a very aggressive way, I think. And you talking with all of us and all the supervisors in the city would really help, I think. So I'm very excited.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
We'll have our next presentation in a couple minutes. Our next presenters will be presenting in just a couple minutes. We just wanted to make sure that there was time between them.
Standing? Sit.
As soon as you're ready, you can come up to the podium. Yes, because we're going to need you on the microphone.
Oh.
Thank you. And then when you're ready, no rush, but when you're ready, we just need your, who you represent, and you can begin. Yes, you may. We do have one commissioner in the restroom right now anyway, so I don't want you to start quite yet. Thanks. Okay. You may begin whenever you're ready.
Well, good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Or am I right, Commissioners?
Yes.
I can't tell you how many times I constantly, with all the communities we work with, it's Commissioner, Board, Council, So thank you for having us tonight. My name is Nate Geinzer. I'm with the firm Double Hall Solutions, which we'll tell you about here a little bit more. But I wanted to bring Tori Mathis, one of my right hands. They're all my right hands, I guess. And you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Sure, yeah. So my name's Tori Mathis. I am the public strategic communications and engagement lead for the Double Hall Solutions. I'm also a practicing professional in the municipal space as well.
So again, thank you for having us. We did not bring a presentation tonight. I did not want to stand up here in front of you for however long and talk at you. I'm hoping we can have a conversation about what it is that you're looking for, how we might approach whatever your needs are, whether we're going to focus on search or other needs that you might have tonight. We're just hoping for some dialogue. So you can ask us anything. You're always going to get an honest, candid answer from us. Let me tell you a little bit about Double Hall Solutions. This is a brainchild of mine about 3.5 years ago or so. I started an LLC just to help out a friend with some consulting work they were doing. When I decided it was my time to be done as a city manager, I said, you know what? I'm going to put my time and effort into helping other communities. And so instead of trying to well, I did do an interview, but instead of trying to continue to pursue city management, I said, you know what? There's more I can offer. There's more that I can offer communities like Adrian. There's more that I can offer my peers, which is the best part of being a consultant, is helping the people that I still consider them my peers. I've been all in on this now for about 3 years now. And one of the reasons I went into consulting was I felt there was a gap. I felt there was gaps in services of the types of consultants that I was looking for when I was first getting started. I've been in local government now for really just shy of 20 years. And that's one thing you'll see with our team. For the most part, all of the people that we work with have 10 years or more of experience in local government. Tori's been in for over 10 years, I think now.
10 years now, yeah.
April Lynch, who's our lead HR, an organizational person, she's been in local government for 30 plus years in HR, city management. Now she's at the county level. I know we're here to talk about the recruitment process and what we do. I can tell you recruiting was not going to be a focus of ours. When I first started, that was not on my radar. It kind of happened as one of my clients said, hey, can you help us? I said, yeah, I'm sure we can help you. And as we used that opportunity, we started to build a process and a recruitment program that was built around people like me, built around people like Tori. I've been through searches. All the people I work with have been through searches from probably every firm that put a proposal in for you. We design our approach to not be like the other firms. Everybody's got their pros and cons. We probably have our pros and cons as well. You all, as our client, are extremely important. But I'll tell you what, those candidates are also our clients. And if our candidates are not happy, we're not going to be able to get you good candidates in front of this body for an interview. We tend to be a little more candid in our process when we speak with the elected bodies as well as our candidates. If we get into the process and we identify there are some issues, we're going to be honest about it, because we don't want our candidates to come in and run into this issue, be blindsided, and now we've started the relationship off on the wrong foot right away, and that's usually a quick way to short circuit the relationship. There's a whole lot of other things that we could talk about. What we can do, if you'd like, we can walk through the proposal, but I'm assuming everybody's had it, everybody's looked through it. So we can jump right into some questions, or we can talk a little bit more about the level of engagement that we do to kick off the search, which is a little more aggressive, I think, than some of the other firms do. Want to start there?
Yes,
So-
please do that.
Yes, I'm going to start with Tori, but to kick her off, the reason we put the time and effort that she's going to walk through in is because we want to tell your community story. If I am putting a brochure online 3 days after you hire me, I've regurgitated everything else that's sitting in my thumb drive or whatever, and I'm probably asking AI now to take all my old proposals and spit it out for Adrian. That's not how we do it. We like to spend a little more time on the front end to get to know you, get to know your staff, get to know your community, Because ultimately, that's what the candidate's going to be looking at when they're looking at whether or not they want to apply for Adrian. So I'm going to hand it off to Tori.
Certainly. Thank you, Nate. So what Nate kind of went over was the preliminary aspects. What does that implementation look like? What does that strategy or process look like when it comes to how we build the profile? And then that's where, you know, our team and specifically myself will start to analyze and look at how we tailor your media and messaging strategy for this role. So you'll kind of see two parallel tracks, one for the candidates and as we're recruiting, but also supporting you as commissioners as well as staff when it comes to messaging and having streamlined consciousness or concise messaging when it comes to talking to the public about this new potential city manager or new individual that's coming into this position. Why is that important? Well, you know, as we've said, we've seen executive searches. We've all been through maybe potentially executive recruitments where you walk into a community, you're either Googling the city before and you're like, what is happening? Or you're kind of blindsided and you're just like, wow, this was not brought up at all. You know, one of the searches we're actually working with now in Ottawa County is you know, they have a lot of tension between the media. And so my role is not only supporting, you know, the candidates as this process goes through, but making sure you as the city is prepared to handle those situations in the event of a potential media issue. It's helping you build that relationship so there's conversation there. And not necessarily conversation in the sense of talking about it, but you know what to say. You have those tools and those resources to talk about the process as we go through it. So what you'll see as we, you know, kind of move into that executive recruitment stage after we kind of do all the intake that we need to build the profile, you'll see what I define as touch points, where we kind of introduce, here's what's happening, here's what to expect through this process for the media as well as your team. You'll have talking points, maybe some FAQs if necessary. I also do a lot of research in terms of your news outlets, all the way from, you know, social media, because that's everybody's favorite friend these days, all the way to, you know, broadcast news and traditional news media outlets. So that way, if we need to leverage those relationships, we have that network established and you guys have those connections as well. And then we tailor the touch points. You know, not everybody's the same. There's usually just kind of rudimentary things where we kind of update the community as each stage moves through the process. But then there are occasions where, like, hey, we've been seeing some trends or sputterings happening, or I've noticed, you know, you guys may come to us and say, hey, there's an incident that's coming up that we might need to be aware of in the same thread of the executive recruitment. So helping, being a partner to you guys and saying, okay, here's how we'll handle it from the recruitment side as far as messaging, not only for the candidates, but for you guys too, if we need to have those powwows, as I like to call them. In addition to this, is why this is so valuable is the market these days for talented professionals. It's a tight market, right? You know, whether you're in the private sector or the public sector. And so our job on why we take so much effort into the media strategy is to anticipate those things, be more proactive in our approach to get ahead of those curves, or not only for your guys' sake, but for the candidate. So then that way, neither of you are surprised in those situations. And that way, really, it's building that relationship long before you even consider this person as, you know, your next employee. So that's a little bit of an overview of what I'll be working on the back end. You'll probably see me also during the stakeholder engagement sessions too.
So just from a summary standpoint, we're talking specifically about communications and storytelling. So hypothetically, you get out of this meeting tonight and you say, you know what, I want to work with these Double Hall Solutions folks. Never heard of them before, but I want to give them a try. What would this look like for the city of Adrian? The first thing that we're doing, again, is we're going to get educated about the community. It's going to be reaching out and talking with you all. We're going to have a meeting just like this. We're going to talk about probably what's going to happen is I'll have my flip chart here. I'm going to draw my stick figure and we're going to start talking about who your next city manager is, right? I'm also going to want to talk to each and every one of you one-on-one, because sometimes there's things that we need to say and we need to talk through that is not always something that we feel comfortable talking with our colleagues about. So I want to make sure everybody has an opportunity to speak freely about what it is they're looking for or not looking for in their next city manager. The second most important piece is the staff. If you told me we don't want you talking with our staff, we're going to have a totally different conversation because the staff are critical when you're bringing on a new city manager. They don't get a say, and we make that very clear. But these are the people that are going to be working with this individual day in and day out. And there are oftentimes very valuable insights that they're going to be able to offer that can help, again, educate us on what's going on or not happening at the city level. We also, if you allow us and if you want it, we want to talk with the community. That can take shape in many, many different ways. We've done it as open houses. We've done it as stakeholder groups where you might say, look, everybody, I want you to give us 2-3 names. And we're going to sit down, have a roundtable discussion with them. We've done survey before where the survey will go out and it's available to commissioner, staff, boards and commissions, community. So those are all options. They don't cost you extra. We have kind of in our mind how much is too much, right? But we're going to work with you to try to make sure that we have as much information as you'll allow us to gather to put together the profiles that we put together. We try to, again, put together a very honest, very candid profile that showcases the community as you are. Selling the community, yes, but making sure that candidate has all the basic information they need to know if this is a position they want to look for. As Tori talked about, the candidate pool is very challenging and competitive. I can tell you if we were having this conversation a year and a half ago, I'd be giving you doom and gloom. But the last 2, 3, 4 searches we've done, the market's very different than the first couple that we did. The 2 that I personally just finished up with was the Village of Dundee and DeWitt Charter Township. And those pools were fantastic, way better than I had anticipated. I think DeWitt Township benefited from its location around the Lansing regional area. Dundee, also very commutable from Toledo and Ann Arbor. Here might be a little different, but I've had a phone call already. So there are people that are watching what's going on here. So the profile hits. We're now in recruitment. We're not a post and wait type of firm, right? There's a lot of different things that are going to be happening that you may and may not see. We try to communicate often with you to give you regular updates on what's happening. But it'll be posted on the sites that we collectively think this is going to be the most effective way to do it. We're making phone calls. We're using LinkedIn. We're using our peer network. So all the people on my team that you see on our roster, we're asking all of them to help out and pitch in to reaching out. We're using our networks, talking with friends of friends of friends. So it's a very proactive approach that we take because that's what you have to do. Especially right now, people are very content and people are even more nervous than they were not too long ago. And folks are not going to get up and go to a place where the grass might be greener for a couple bucks more, which gets me to my next point that's really kind of changed in the last, I would say, 2 years, is salaries have really accelerated. I had not seen this during my tenure as a city manager. We've started putting in our proposals, expect 10 to 30%, and I can't tell you why. Every community we've been at has been a totally different story. When we did the Dundee recommendation for salary, that council went 20,000 more than what we put in because they really wanted to try to get attention of that unicorn. They didn't get a unicorn, they got a great manager. Ryan's going to do a great job for them. But councils, elected bodies are starting to get a sense that, you know what, maybe we do need to be more aggressive on the pay side. So the way we vet candidates, again, this is all based on our experiences of going through a search. We're going to start with the intake. If you meet basic requirements, we're going to send you a questionnaire. Why do we send you a questionnaire? Quite frankly, I want to know if you can write a paragraph. I want to see how you communicate. I want to see how much time and effort you've put into understanding not just this role, but this community, right? I go through that. It would be me as the lead on this one, most likely. So we start there. If your answers are sufficient, you're like this, I want to hear more from this person, I'm going to invite you to a virtual interview. And this piece is a real important piece to us because it's a pet peeve of ours. each person that gets invited to a virtual interview will interview in a two-way conversation from the exact same person. Multiple people are not collecting or doing those interviews, because my interview with you, Mayor, might be very different than Tori's interview with you, and we want to have consistency amongst the candidates. So from there, our goal is to get somewhere between 10, maybe as high as 15, depending on the pool that we can bring to you in a closed session. We're going to talk through that under the OMA. Most candidates are going to ask for that confidentiality. And from there, we're going to help walk you through those candidates and help you select those top 3, 4, 5. Once you start getting higher than 5, I think we need to talk more, because you can have too big of a pool as well. And then we're going to come out of that meeting and we're going to invite candidates by number. From there, we set the interviews. And again, the interviews are an open book or an open slate of options. There's all kinds of different ways we can do that. And a lot of that interview process is going to come to going to start taking shape as we continue to work with you and figure out what you and the community are looking for from a process. If you just want a one and done interview, we're going to come in, we're going to interview for 45 minutes, and then we're going to make our decision. I'm going to advise you very strongly that we don't do it that way, but if that's what you want it to, if that's how you want to work it, we're going to do it that way. Primarily, we typically like a 2-day process. It doesn't have to be successive days, but I think it makes a little more efficient process. We tend to like longer interviews. I've been in those short interviews. 45 minutes does not do you any justice in learning on a candidate and who they are. We like around the 75 minutes, at least that's what I've been using the last few, because it gives us time to ask more robust questions, more of them, and usually leaves some time for dialogue at the end. So you can have that two-way communication. I also, usually on the day before interviews, again, if we can schedule it and we have the time, I like to bring them into the community. I like to tour them around the facilities. I like to have them engage with staff. If you want to do a community open house or community stakeholder groups, we can work all of that in. The point being, as I'm rambling on here now, as I can see you all looking at me like, okay, when is he going to stop talking and take a breath? It's very customizable. We're here for you. You're not here for us. If you don't award this to us, we're going to go home, we're going to sleep just fine. But we're here to help you get the best candidate we can get you in the climate that we're in for what it is that you're looking for, not the other way around.
Okay.
Yes, you may.
One other thing that I just always like to highlight in this process is if you see a theme anywhere, it's relational. It's beyond just understanding if this person's qualified. Are they a cultural fit for you? That's very important and that's very key here, because you can have the most qualified person, but if they're going to butt heads every time you have a conversation with them, every time you're trying to work on a new initiative or a project, that's critical, and that's not conducive for either party. So that is why we're so focused on the community engagement side, whether it's just internal, but community focused too. So that's all I'd like to add.
Well, and you reminded me, I won't get into it. We could talk more about if there's questions, but that's also why we came up with Strong Start, because those first few months of your relationship with a new manager is going to set the tone for their entire tenure here, whether it's 2 years or 20 years. If you don't get that first few months right, or really that first year, it's doomed. You're either going to have a very short tenure or you're going to have a long, miserable tenure. And our goal is to help you start out that relationship on the right foot so you have the right tenure, I guess you could say, because everybody's going to hit a point where you're going to know it's time. But that being said, we can talk more about search. There's a whole lot of other things we can do. I know when we talked with Heather, there was some questions about other services that we can provide. I know when I talked with Robert, there was discussion about other things that we can provide. We're happy to get into any and all of that with you tonight, but we want to be very respectful of your time.
Could you share maybe a little bit of the leadership team work that you're doing in Tecumseh and the success you're seeing there?
Yeah, so that's still very early. That is, I've got so many names in my head right now. Dan, I've known Dan for a long time. He was actually our very first client. And we did some team building with him and his staff. This is about 2.5 years ago. They're looking at revamping their goals, trying to build some alignment between the council and manager and staff, quite honestly. And So they invited us in to facilitate some goal setting discussions. And I think at first, the council was a little, I wouldn't say caught off guard, but I don't look at goals the same way maybe every council looks at goals. A goal is not a task. A goal should be a big picture thing, big picture aspiration. Under that, we start talking about tasks. So we had a very broad conversation. We left there. I just sent him the draft of the goals. Our game plan is to, once he gets back into town, we'll be looking to see if I'm right. Because I don't know how many consultants you guys have worked with where you're like, that is not what I told the consultant. They heard what they wanted to hear and that's what they presented back to me. No, I want to present to you what I thought I heard and we're going to check and make sure we're in alignment. So that's the process we're in right now. From there, Dan's been talking about whether or not he may or may not want some help in us operationalizing those goals. Because once you have the goals, we got to figure out how are we going to get there? What are the tools that are going to get us to adding more sidewalks, right? What's the timeline? What's the funding source? Is there a grant program? Is it not? Are there the staff resources to take on this big goal? Those are the things that every manager's, every council commission is going to have to struggle with. So that's kind of the process that we're in right now. We're doing something very similar with DeWitt Charter Township. As I mentioned, we did their search. We weren't even done with the search when the supervisor said, we want you doing our next strategic planning work with us. So we're in the process right now where we're going to go in, we're kind of reviewing their former 5-year plan. We want to see, do these things still resonate? Was there progress? And start getting some hints at where do they want to go to help us facilitate our initial conversations. But what I'll also want to clarify is I haven't figured out how I want to define it, but in both Dan, or I should use his City Manager Swallow's case and also Supervisor Gallardi's case, I would consider those more of strategic frameworks, right? When I think of a strategic plan, I'm thinking like big picture community strategic plan where we've got tons of community input. We're really trying to set a aligned vision that the whole community can get behind. Because ideally, if you're trying to move your community forward, everybody needs to be rowing in the same direction. Whether you're the city commission or you're Rotary, or you're the theater club, or you're the men's club or the women's club or whomever, you should all be pointing towards that North Star. That's not what these couple initiatives are. They're more, they seem to be more of an internal North Star that they're trying to work towards. But Dundee, for example, we just finished that search up. They've never done a strategic plan. And they're at a place where, if you're familiar with Dundee, hit very rural historic roots, right between Ann Arbor and Toledo. You're starting to see some influx of different values that were not in Dundee before. That starts to create some conflict. Where do you go from there? It creates challenges on the city council. Again, it goes back to the candor. Ryan knows exactly what he's walking into. But back to the point, the only way we can really try to get that community aligned is by having conversations, is to have some community engagement and some strategic planning at the community level, right? So that is something we could do here, depending on the level of strong start that you do. This goes to the point of that first few months. At a minimum, what we're going to do is April will be working with the new city manager and this commission on putting together an onboarding plan. To my knowledge, unless somebody's copied us at this point, we're still the only recruiting company that does an onboarding plan right out the gate and gives the new manager 3 months of executive coaching. Be careful when you hear the word coaching, because a lot of people say they're coaches. The coach we use is a certified executive coach. It's right in her credentials. That's April. Not everybody is like that. If you don't have that credential, you're not a coach. At least that's what I understand in the coaching world. Now, a step further from that, that key point, whether we do it or you do it on your own, that first kind of kickoff meeting with the new city manager, that is your most important meeting. Besides making sure the selection goes well and they know, like, they feel like they're welcome. But that first time when you're getting together and you're trying to get everybody aligned behind a common direction where everybody knows what everybody's expectations are, that meeting's got to be right. And so that's one of the things that we we can do with you. When there is not alignment out of the gate, when those expectations are not known, city manager's gonna go this way, commission's gonna go this way. That doesn't work really well for my analogy because ultimately it comes back down and you end up crashing heads, right? But the other big piece with that we'll do is in the evaluation process. So on our complete that we call it, it still sounds cheesy to me, but I like what we're trying to do with it. We'll do a 6-month check-in. That's where we're talking with the city manager. Hey, how are things going? How are things going? We're talking with the commissioners. How are things going? We're trying to look for ripples before they blow out, right? We want to make sure that if there's a miscommunication in alignment, we want to try to bring everybody back together. And then that first year evaluation, we're doing a facilitated evaluation with somebody who has done it, has an actual methodology that can provide real and constructive feedback. As you may or may not be able to tell, I'm pretty honest, I'm pretty candid, probably to a fault. I've been in too many evaluations where I get into the room and you're doing a terrible job, you're doing a great job, keep up the good work. Why do you look at me this way? Whatever it happens to be, it doesn't help me improve and be a better manager. It doesn't provide constructive feedback to me. It doesn't provide constructive feedback from the manager to you all to be better bosses, right? So that facilitated evaluation is another thing that we'll do as well.
So I appreciate that you emphasize talking to staff, because we asked that there be a survey of our staff to talk about some things that so when we were listening to that we were looking for some of the strengths, weaknesses and things like that. And as I read that survey and listening to you talk, I feel that this is such a multifaceted. There are gonna be a lot of wheels turning in this, cogs on these. So how do you interface, working with our strategic plan, hiring this person, working on leadership with staff? And I think one thing, and maybe I missed it a little bit, but how are you going to communicate? I know you talked about media and getting ahead of it, but how are we going to ask our community what they see and what they want to hear and things like that too? So such a multifaceted approach to this, but I think that we need to, do all of the above things you're talking about. Can you just explain how that interfaces together? How we're talking with the community,
Okay.
talking with staff, and making everybody feel whole again?
Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely.
So
and coaching us at the same time
Yes.
on how to do this collectively.
Yes.
And ultimately, that's a really good point, because when a new person's coming in, you want them to feel welcomed. It's very difficult when you feel like you're coming in to a very disjointed community, because you're going to have your hands full. I was the interim manager in Berkeley recently, and one of the things they didn't have was a strategic framework. Council was on one page, staff was on another, community was on kind of another. We really kind of focused internally because that was the need. But we tried to make sure those pieces were there, so when that manager came in, there was more unanimity. And that's our goal here. To your point, Commissioner, the question will be, how much do you want us to do? We're going to do almost as much as you want. At a certain point, there's going to be engagement that's beyond what we really had anticipated. We can talk about that. But within what we presented to you, if you want us to do a survey, we have one ready to go. It's pretty basic, but what I like about it is it's basic enough that helps us paint the picture of the character of the person that they're looking for, right? We'll talk about how we select the manager later. But as far as telling the candidate field who Adrian is looking for as a manager, that survey will do its job, and it will do its job from a staff, from a community, from a commission standpoint. We can always expand it as well. It's not that hard. From a community engagement, if you want us to come into town one day, it's not in here. But if you want us to come into town one day, we get everything all teed up, and you say, look, Nate, we want you to be at the chamber for a round table at this time. We want you set up at the coffee shop for a couple-hour window and be available to talk with residents. We're going to have business leaders here for a cocktail hour. And then at night, we want you and your team to have an open house with the community so we can have more conversation. Done.
Yes.
That's easy. Like I said, well, I didn't say this. as I said, sometimes I'm honest to a fault. We did not go down the recruitment path to get rich, to build up our business. We went down this path because we saw the need. We believe in what we do. I believe very strongly in the city management profession. And it has not gotten any easier in the time that I've entered this field. I've had a lot of people that have either left that are really good managers. Like they had a lot of years left, but it's getting that hard. And we have many peers and students that we've talked to that want nothing to do with this profession because of what it has turned into in some cases. So our job and part of our mission is to try to get over those challenges. And that's why I'm saying to you, Commissioner Castleberry, we're going to put in the work. Now, if you want us to come in here for 3, 4, 5 days, then we might have to say, look, we got to talk about this pricing model a little bit. But you need me in here for a day, I'm going to do it. The only other thing I would say is just with some of the other projects we have out there and some other things that I might have to get engaged in. That's why we have a team. I will be your point. I've been the one that's been talking with Heather from the beginning, but I have a whole awesome team of people that I can lean on to make sure, look, if Nate can't be here for the day, I can get Tori and Zach here for the day, or whomever it happens to be. We'll make it work. Oh yeah,
It's okay.
sorry.
No, Nate, you did a great job. Really, the thing that I'll take, I was just in Ottawa County this past week because we're helping with their county administrator. I don't know how many of you follow the news and what's happening on the west side, but it's a bit tumultuous right now. And so the biggest thing that we have learned, and I say this personally, even for myself, as a communicator, I might not be a city manager, but I have gone through enough city managers in my time. And it's part of my job to kind of be that support system or be that bridge. And that's the approach we take. And to your point about how we approach it, it's phased. So that first conversation, if selected, will be looking at what does this timeline look like? We start with you guys because you are this individual's boss. So we want to make sure that we're at least in alignment with you guys about what your expectations are. A big thing that I always say, when it comes to community engagement is, you guys have the lived experience. We establish the rules for engagement. So how do we balance what you guys are looking for with what the realities of the profession are, and then build that consensus around there. So it starts with you guys in that first kickoff session that we have to establish, not just, your priorities or concerns, but really, what does long-term sustainability look like for your community as a whole, and who is that person leading that, taking that torch for you? So that's all I'd like to say.
And one other thing you had brought up, Commissioner, is just how do we connect all the dots? I think that's one of the advantages with us. We're going to do as much work or as little as you want us to do. But if you said, look, Nate and team, we want you to come in here and do our search, but you know what? We haven't done a strategic plan in a long time. We really want to make sure this is all aligning and getting us ready to just hit the ground running with a new direction, a new unified direction. It's easier for us to connect the dots that way, but even if it wasn't us, we'll help you figure it out. That's where the coaching comes in. That's where the onboarding comes in. That's where April kind of learning about what the needs are of the commission, the community, and the manager. She can build that into her coaching model, and whether it's a strategic plan that we wrote or someone that Joe's Consulting wrote, if we have that as a reference, we can tie that all together. The only thing I would say, because I was watching one of your meetings, I think it was last month, if you were going to try to do some of these things in parallel, I would not do them in exact parallel. I would maybe get your search started and then bring this one up so that when your manager comes in, they're helping to round out that strategic plan so they have buy-in into that as well. I just think that's super critical because they may have some things that we didn't think about or that you didn't think about. So the better we can align all those things, I think you're going to have a great opportunity.
I did have a question. I was looking back through the original information you gave. So on the scope of work for an executive search, like the strong start basic and, all that, it says it's, included in there, but how much on average, would you expect those other expenses to be
Sure.
added in there? Because I saw like, you know, the background checks, the job board sites, like, just to kind of give us a ballpark.
Yeah, so you are in our older format, which is good for you guys because we had to adjust some pricing. Our base search is what do we have? 15,495. So it's got the Strong Start Basics. So what is that? Onboarding plan. April will be working with you and the manager. That's just a lot of it seems it could be as no-brainers, but you wouldn't believe how many people don't even think about some of the things that they need to make sure they try to get done in the first 3 months. And then it's going to be the 3 months of coaching. And basically what that is that's going to be April checking in with that person. How's it going? How's your relationships going with these different groups? Are you struggling? What are your barriers? That's in the basic level. We kind of talked about the level of community engagement on the front end, on the back end. We're going to work with you there. The only place I might say, hey, Mayor, we need to have a conversation, or Heather, there's Heather. We need to have a conversation about this. It's going to be, look, we want so much more than what you had in here. We're going to have a conversation. Are we going to try to hose you on it? No. As far as background checks, it's not a lot. It depends on who you want to background check. At a minimum, you want to do the person that you're offering the job to. That's really the only one that you really have to do a background on. Where your costs are going to add up is, let's say you invite 5 people and you say, I want a full background check on all 5 of these people. You're going to have somewhere between, if I can do my math right, $1,000 and $2,000, right? I would advise against doing the background on all 5 of them, because we're going to do a preliminary and look for any obvious red flags. If something that egregious is out there, you're going to find it on Google. You're not going to have to run a full background check. There's a chance we could be surprised. But the other thing too, with our years in the profession and all the people we know, most of these candidates we're going to know. And we're going to have a pretty good idea of where they're coming from. We're going to know the context behind whatever it is we come across with Google. We also ask the candidates when we do that pre-vetting, the video interview, we ask them, what's in your background? You want to try to explain it to us. We give them that opportunity to talk about it. We'll talk through those things as we're vetting candidates in closed session. Job board sites is going to depend on how far of a reach. I think we put in here, expect up to 3,000. But if you just said, hey, Nate, we only really need to hit MML. We're not trying to do a national search. Just grab MML and maybe another couple. You're talking about 1,500 maybe. But if we're going to hit the basics like MML, we're going to hit ICMA, depending on your reach, like Ottawa really wants us to make sure we hit private sector and nonprofit sector. There's probably a couple national job boards that we're going to try to hit. We prefer, unless you told us otherwise, we're not going to do ZipRecruiter and all those. Those are a complete waste of time. That might jack up our application numbers. It does not jack up our number of qualified candidates. So we typically do not spend money on those. And then your other costs are going to be based on really how we design the interview and where our candidates coming from. If all of our candidates are coming from California for some odd reason, you're going to have a lot of travel and hotel costs, right? For the most part, probably the majority of your candidates are probably coming from within driving distance. Depending on how far away, there might be a hotel in there. Depending on how nice you want to be. I've never seen anybody do mileage for somebody, but airplane tickets, if that's appropriate, hotels, you'll see some of that. And then again, depending on, are we doing a community open house? Is there hors d'oeuvres and snacks at this thing? Are we having the candidates for dinner? Are we needing to rent a bus for a community tour? You know, those types of things we can't really anticipate. It's really all going to depend on how you want that process to ultimately look. Does that answer your question?
Yes,
Oh,
and how often?
I know what I missed.
Well, and how often do you suggest that a municipality does that compensation review and benchmarking? I guess, because I know that's an added, I'm just asking because I don't know if, you know, if that's something, or is it something you're just going to look at the compensation when we give it to you, and you're gonna say, hey, we probably should do this, or?
It's going to depend on how confident you are. If you haven't done, say, a class and comp study in the last decade or so, I'd probably say you might want to look at it. At a minimum, we're going to look at the market for you. So I'm gonna come to you in one of our conversations. I'm going to say, here's the active positions right now that are roughly comparable to where you're at. Here's where they're posting at. And oh, by the way, I can tell you, I just ran the Dundee search and they were here. DeWitt Township was here, but it's not going to be scientific. I'm not going to be able to say Adrian's peer communities of this is exactly where their salary scale is. This is where their benefits are at. That's something we just did for somebody. That'll get into a lot more detail, but from a high level, that's just something we're going to do for you anyway. If you haven't done one, it might be worth it. But if you're open to saying, okay, here's where the market seems to be at, and taking an educated guess based on what kind of candidate you're looking for, you may not have to do it. I mean, I could sit here and try to upsell you, but that's just, I'm a terrible salesperson. The two things that I didn't mention is for the other levels of Strong Start, if you wanted to go further. I think this is before we changed our rate. So if you wanted to have basically that full year, and then that gives us also the longer guarantee. I think it's 39.95. And that's where we're going to give you the full year of coaching. We're going to do that kickoff expectation meeting right out the gate. We're going to come in and do, I would call it a evaluation light. And then we'll bring in a professional facilitator at our cost. It's part of this. They'll come in. We tend to work with James Vitrano of Vitrano Consulting. He's done that for us for a couple of them. It's a very systematic, very productive conversation you would have with him in a facilitated evaluation. And then we can go beyond that. If you feel like team building is something you need, we have an awesome facilitator. Her name's Nancy. We can do 5 behaviors of a cohesive team, which is a great program. She's also certified in DISC if you like that. If it's something that just they want to do at the staff level, we can arrange that as well. So again, it all depends on what it is that you want and how much you want to invest in setting this relationship out, set it up right out of the gate. But it will always be transparent.
Could you talk to us about any searches you may have had where you've gone through the process and the commission has said, good, but we don't see a fit? Or have you had 100% match?
Hasn't happened yet. But the tricky one that we ran into, and this is where when Tori was talking about media and how things are going with the story and what are the dynamics in the community. That very first search we did, I was the interim manager up in Traverse City, and the DDA had asked, hey, can you do our DDA search? The market was very different, almost a year and a half, 2 years ago now. We got to essentially a day or two before the interviews. We had already lost one of their top 4. We lost a second. So we were down to 2. And part of the reason we ended up with only 2 candidates is because there was a delay. Because the council was refusing to approve the DDA budget. So they didn't even know if they were going to have money budgeted to have this person start. So the DDA said, stop. We need to get this taken care of first. So that added like a 2 or 3 week gap. So we lost one because of interest, because of the stuff that was going on. The other one because they got a different job opportunity. Have I gotten to the end where a council or an elected body is like, nah, we haven't been there yet. I don't think we were even close with any of the recent searches that I've been involved with. One of the ones that our colleagues did got close, but they had somebody. If we ran into that situation here, we're going to have a conversation. Was that person not there because we couldn't get consensus on that person? Or was that person not there because there really wasn't those people in the pool? Am I going to force you to pick somebody? Absolutely not. I would never say, well, look, you hired me in here to put a body in that chair. and you guys say, fine, we're gonna select Jane Smith here, and you guys are miserable, and we walk out with our check and right away things fall apart, that doesn't do anybody any good. We're gonna make sure we put the time and effort to get the person you need in here. If that's not in the first round, then we'll go back out. We'll either go back into our pool and look at the candidates that we put off to the side, or we'll repost it. That's just part of the recruitment game. Does that cost you more? No. Now, if it's something that's just the elected body is completely unreasonable, we'll have a conversation. But again, I've not worked with an unreasonable council yet. I've worked with difficult elected bodies, but I've not worked with one that couldn't be worked with.
And that's another reason why we spend so much time at the beginning with like engagement and stakeholder engagement, because we want to get out all those kinks, get all those frustrations or, butting of heads right from the start. So then that way we don't have to worry about that right at the end, which is, it's something that we're doing with Ottawa County right now. And even with the staff engagement, I think each one of us have said at one point, if you don't provide honest commentary, we're not going to find the right candidate for you. So you have to be 100% honest. And if that's not in this space, totally fine. Give us a call and we'll schedule a one-on-one with you. We have no issue doing that.
It's one of the reasons we got that search, because we were the only firm that brought up the challenge that they've been having over the last 2 years.
Can you speak to marketing us? We know we're not near major highways. We're not, like your process for that as well, like marketing us to candidates?
So that's part of that first step, if you will, of the process, where we're going to come in here and learn you. We're also going to take the time to learn your community, right? You got an awesome historic downtown. That's an easy one. We're going to hit that up. I did notice a number of vacant storefronts. That's an opportunity. It's also a challenge. We're going to talk about it in both lights. Same issue, and not the same, similar issues in Dundee. They have a number of vacant storefronts. Nobody knows why. It's something that is a priority for them. We're going to ask you, what are your priorities? What are your challenges? If you have folks that we should be talking to, business community or what have you, and you're comfortable with us doing that, we're going to talk to them. What is it that sells your community? And we're going to incorporate that all in. We're not going to just put a bunch of fluff that we made up. We're going to tell your story. We're going to tell some of the, if there's some not good things, we're going to talk about that too. I was in another meeting. I heard we've got homeless in Adrian. I've dealt with that. We're going to talk about that, because these are the things that we're going to be working with. Does that make us a bad community? No. It makes us a community like many others in America, where we've got challenges that we're working through. We're going to tell that story, but we're going to put it on a positive light. I don't know too many city managers that go into this profession because they think it's going to be easy. It's the challenge, it's the hard work that draws them to public service. And that's what we try to play up.
From a tactile standpoint, you'll see the brochure we put together that comes together. If you saw the digital version of the proposal, we usually like to include an example of a previous city, and that narrative or that brochure was something that I took on and our team worked on to craft that narrative. And we'll talk you through, if you have questions on why we wrote it the way that we did, to kind of establish that voice tone. But you will be a part of that process too. You'll have a chance to review that language, that narrative, and that's like the tangible document that we use to promote your community.
And it's not just the document. Again, we talked earlier, we don't just post and wait. We're going to take phone calls, and if a candidate calls me and the phone call takes an hour, I get to know a candidate for an hour. I don't tell them, look, you only get 5 minutes with me. They need an hour to understand if they're the right person to apply for this job. We're going to put that time in. So the brochure is only a piece of it. The posting on the job boards is only a piece of it. My conversation or Tori or whomever's conversation with that candidate is only a piece of it. It's also going to be the story your community tells. One of the conversations or one of the questions we'll ask you, both collectively but also individually, is candidates going to do their homework. When a candidate Googles Adrian, what are they going to find that's going to make you cringe? You can expect that question from us, but then we're going to also ask you, what are they going to Google? What are they going to find that's going to make you really, really proud? All of that type of stuff is going to go into that story that we tell and we talk through with the candidates.
a step further as well is once we finalize that tangible document that we're referencing, we're doing it with the city of Ottawa, or county of Ottawa, excuse me. We'll have probably a conversation with them. I'm working with the project lead now on what messaging I can provide the commissioners. So then that way we're all unified in our approach. So there isn't any misnomers or any confusion in the event that media does reach out to you and ask you, because we have had that happen. Why did you put that in the brochure? That's a question that sometimes media asks. So we want to make sure that you guys have the tools necessary for those types of questions as well.
We want to make this easy for you. We don't want to make your job any harder than it already is. I mean, I'm sure you've heard it before, especially you've been on this body for longer than your prior city manager was here. Every recruiter is going to tell you this is the most important job that you as an elected body has, and it 100% is. But we don't want to make it any harder.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
At this time, we are going to begin public comment. Just to reiterate, there's a 3-minute time limit. And for the record, please state your name and place of residence. When we have exhausted all comment within the city chambers, we will then open it up to the Zoom participants.
Sorry. Okay. Hi, I'm Aaron Cheshire, City of Adrian resident. After listening to both of the presentations, I really like both of them. I just wanted to make a comment about something that Nate just said, about asking community leaders, specifically about what our city needs. I encourage the commission to refer, whichever company is chosen, to the community nonprofit leaders, not just business owners. For example, Adrian has a strong social justice history, so be sure to refer the Latino leaders or the queer leaders to really show the company what Adrian is really about. Thanks.
Tom Fallhaber, 419 Budlong Street. I started following city politics here in the late 1960s. What I'm hoping you will do here is get somebody that will be part of this community. We didn't have that. Mr. Elliott, I believe, did a good job. He didn't live here. He lived in Tecumseh, as I understand. Correct me if I'm wrong. And wasn't very approachable, in my opinion, and a good person, but I just think I'd like to see you, when the time comes, name somebody that's going to be a part of this community. I think back to the late 60s, we had the likes of Clifford Miles. He was here for years, is very much part of the community. We had George Brown. He continued to live here after he retired. We had George Brown. He was excellent. We had Dane Nelson. That's one of the two or three votes I regret doing. It was when we agreed to go a separate way from him. I think Dane was, I've even told him so. It was a mistake we made to part company with him. And we've had some good city administrators here, but I just hope you pick somebody that's going to be part of this community and wants to be involved in this community and is approachable. Thank you.
We will now open it up to the Zoom participants. Hearing no more public comment, we will now open it up to the commissioners for commissioner comments.
Are we going to have more discussion at the next commission meeting about this and who we're going to decide, or should we have our minds kind of situated for that meeting? Are we going to vote at that meeting?
Or because I thought we were gonna make the decision tonight, but I guess I wasn't certain about that.
I was not under the impression we were making the decision tonight, but I mean, my opinion is that this is just my opinion, but my opinion was that we have a discussion, a work study session at the next meeting, but we have the resolution ready and we just fill in for what that discussion leads for who we're going to go with for the search. That would be
I concur.
my thought.
I concur with that. I'd like to do a little more studying after I heard them.
Because I would like to do a little bit more now after hearing as well.
I would, having had email communications, they all had references that were listed there. Good feedback from the people that I was able to get feedback from. So I only did 2 from each firm, so please do as many as you can or you want as well, so we can get that diverse perspective.
Any more commissioner comments? All right, just a reminder, we have a special meeting tomorrow evening for the budget to hear from our department heads at 5 PM here at City Chambers. May I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Or
All in favor, say aye.
I.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.